Today's video here on the Alfie half frame camera, we're going to get into the menu, how to set up the menu, how to understand the menu, and how to optimize what this really amazing super compact camera can do. All right, so today I'm going to go through the menu settings here on the Alfie camera. So when I turn the camera on, it gives me the serial number, firmware number, and I can then, by using this selector switch here on the back, adjust all the settings that you're seeing here. So right now you see it says ISO 400. That's the film I have loaded. It's some Tri-X in here. You see my battery power is 100%. I'm at f8 and the meter, which is right here again, is saying that it's 125th basically of a second, and my frame counter is 2 shots taken on this roll, and I'm in aperture priority. So that's all pretty easily laid out. I've looked at this in a lot of different lighting scenarios, and I've never had a problem being able to read this information. So the shutter release button is here. Here how quiet it is once again. And so now I'm going to go through and show you how to adjust these different settings and what they mean. Now, if you remember, there are 4 different lens options on this camera. We have a meniscus lens at f8. We have a high quality lens at f8. We have a pinhole lens at f1.25 and a zone plate at f56. So depending on which lens I have selected affects which aperture priority mode we're set. So you see right now we're at f8. That aperture priority mode is for the meniscus lens as well as the high quality lens. So I can bounce back and forth between those 2 lenses just using this one setting. On the back, if I press this button in once, you can see it's switched to f1.25. f1.25 is the pinholes. This is all nicely programmed. If I press it again, you can see it's switched to f56, which is for the zone plate. So just by toggling through those 3 settings right there, I can choose each individual one. If I press it again, it goes into a total manual exposure mode, which gives you just a lot of control over how you want the shutter speed to be. So that's how you activate like a bulb exposure, and you would use whatever the f-stop is on the front with your auxiliary meter in order to make that happen. So manual mode's a nice option if you're doing some real low light or some pinhole photography. Once again, I just pressed it again. It went into aperture priority mode, f8, which is of course the meniscus lens or the high quality lens. You also have exposure compensation. This back dial on the back rocks back and forth in either direction. So if I hit it to the right, it goes plus half a stop, plus a stop, plus a stop and a half, plus 2 stops. So it'll go plus and minus 2 stops exposure compensation. And that is really helpful if you have a subject that's backlit. You might want to go a stop and a half more. If you have a subject that's side lit in a window, I usually suggest a stop more. It's also useful for reciprocity. Let's say you're working with the pinhole lens. Let me activate that. And then I'll scroll through till I see f1.25. You can see how the exposure is 1 second long. 1 second on a lot of films, not all films, but a lot of films will require some compensation for reciprocity. Generally speaking, I would say double the exposure in terms of shutter speed to compensate for that. So all I have to do is go plus 1, and now the exposure is 3 seconds. That's close enough. Or I could go plus a half, and it goes to 2 seconds. But using the exposure compensation is a really easy way to correct for reciprocity, and if I had a really bad film, I could even go 2, something like Pan F50 by Ilford has just atrocious reciprocity. So I might do something like that. But this is a really great way to very easily correct for reciprocity without having to go into manual mode. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, let me put it back to meniscus lens, just because I like that one. And I'll scroll back through, and once again, just tap it each time. And we are back at f8. So in order to get into the main menu, you press and hold this button here on the back for 2 seconds, and it activates this menu. Now this menu is controlled by pressing that button again, and at the very top you see it has ISO. So once I'm on ISO, I can simply move the button to the right or to the left to use the full ISO range. I'm shooting Tri-X in this processed in diaphine, so I generally speaking shoot that at 800. If I press the button in once, it takes me down to the ability to zero out the counter. You need to do this every time you load a new roll. It goes out to 255 shots, and you simply just turn it down to 0. If I press it again, I get the option of a delayed shutter. This is like a self-timer. It's wonderful for if you don't want to use the remote cable release, and you have the option of a 1 second, 2 second, 5 second, or 9 second options, so super nice. And then the last setting is for flash or remote. I always leave it on REM, which is remote, because the flash would activate here through the USB-C port. And then to lock all of those in, simply hold the button in for 2 seconds. It always turns me back to manual, so I just type it one time. Once again, I'm back at f8, which is my meniscus lens. It's clearly labeled, and at ISO 800, and my frame counter is 000, battery, and everything is good to go. So the way that I use this camera, because there is no optical information in the viewfinder, depends upon which of the 4 options of lenses that I've selected. If I'm using the meniscus lens or the high quality lens, both which are f8, generally speaking, I don't really worry too much about the shutter speed, and I just pop the camera up and shoot. On a bright sunny day from EV16 all the way down to 10:9:8, it's going to be something that I can easily hand hold. If I'm shooting something in really low light, or if I've got the pinhole or the zone plate selected, what I'll do is I'll look at the top of the camera before putting it to my eye so I can read what the shutter speed is. Once again, there's no information in the optical viewfinder. Once I know that, I can then say, do I need to do some adjustment for reciprocity, depending upon the film, maybe, maybe not, and then I'll put it to my eye and shoot. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day, and go shoot some film.